The Vedic period was the period in Indian history during which the Vedas, the oldest scriptures of Hinduism, were composed. During the early part of the Vedic period, the Indo-Aryans settled into northern India, bringing with them their specific religious traditions. The associated culture was initially a tribal, pastoral society centered in the northwestern parts of the Indian subcontinent. It spread after 1200 BCE to the Ganges plain, as it was shaped by increasing settled agriculture, a hierarchy of four social classes, and the emergence of monarchical, state-level polities. Scholars consider Vedic civilization to have been a composite of the Indo-Aryan and Harappan cultures. The end of the Vedic period witnessed the rise of large, urbanized states, as well as of Shramana movements which challenged the Vedic orthodoxy. Around the beginning of the Common Era, the Vedic tradition formed one of the main constituents of the so-called Hindu synthesis. History. Origins. The commonly proposed period of earlier Vedic ages dated back to 2nd millennium BCE. After the collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization, which ended c. 1900 BCE, groups of Indo-Aryan peoples migrated into northwestern India and started to inhabit the northern Indus Valley. The knowledge about the Aryans comes mostly from the Rigveda Samhita, which was composed between c. 1500 to 1200 BCE. They brought with them their distinctive religious traditions and practices. The Vedic beliefs and practices of the pre-classical era were closely related to the hypothesized Proto-Indo-European religion, and the Indo-Iranian religion. According to Antony, the Old Indic religion probably emerged among Indo-European immigrants in the contact zone between the Zir of Shan River and Iran. It was a syncretic mixture of Old Central Asian and New Indo-European elements, which borrowed distinctive religious beliefs and practices from the Bactria-Marjana culture. At least 383 non-Indo-European words were borrowed from this culture, including the god Indra and the ritual drink Soma. According to Antony, many of the qualities of Indo-Iranian god of might, victory, Varithrana, were transferred to the adopted god Indra, who became the central deity of the developing Old Indic culture. Indra was the subject of 250 hymns, a quarter of the Rigveda. He was associated more than any other deity with Soma, a stimulant drug probably borrowed from the Brahmac religion. His rise to prominence was a peculiar trait of the Old Indic speakers. Early Vedic period. These migrations may have been accompanied with violent clashes with the people who already inhabited this region. The Rigveda contains accounts of conflicts between the Aryas and the Disas and Dasyush. The Rigveda describes Disas and Dasyush as people who do not perform sacrifices or obey the commandments of gods. Their speech is described as marira, which could variously mean soft, uncouth, hostile, scornful or abusive. Other adjectives which describe their physical appearance are subject to many interpretations. However, many modern scholars connect the Disas and Dasyush to Iranian tribes Daha and Dahu and believe that Disas and Dasyush were early Indo-Aryan immigrants who arrived into the subcontinent before the Vedic Aryans. Internecine military conflicts between the various tribes of Vedic Aryans are also described in the Rigveda. Most notable of such conflicts was the Battle of 10 Kings, which took place on the banks of the river Parashni. The battle was fought between the tribe Bharatash, led by their chief Sudis, against a confederation of 10 tribes: Puru, Yadu, Turvasha, Anu, Druhu, Alina, Balanas, Patha, Shiva, Vishanine. Bharatash lived around the upper regions of the river Saraswati, while Purus, their western neighbors, lived along the lower regions of Saraswati. The other tribes dwelt northwest of the Bharatash in the region of Punjab. Division of the waters of Ravi could have been a reason for the war. The confederation of tribes tried to inundate the Bharatash by opening the embankments of Ravi. Yet Sudis emerged victorious in the Battle of 10 Kings. Purakutsa, the chief of Puris, was killed in the battle, and the Bharatash and the Puris merged into a new tribe, Kuru, after the war. Later Vedic period, after the 12th century BCE, as the Rig Veda had taken its final form, the Vedic society transitioned from semi-nomadic life to settled agriculture. Vedic culture extended into the western Ganges plain. The Gangetic plains had remained out of bounds to the Vedic tribes because of thick forest cover. After 1000 BCE, the use of iron axes and plows became widespread and the jungles could be cleared with ease. This enabled the Vedic Aryans to settle at the western Gangetic plains. Many of the old tribes coalesced to form larger political units. The Vedic religion was further developed when the Indo-Aryans migrated into the Ganges plain after c. 1100 BCE and became settled farmers, further syncretizing with the native cultures of northern India. In this period the Varna system emerged, state Kulka and Rothamund, which in this stage of Indian history were hierarchical order of estates which reflected a division of labor among various social classes. The Vedic period estates were three: Brahmin priests and warrior nobility were first, peasants and traders as second, and laborers and artisans belonging to indigenous people were third. This was a period where agriculture, metal and commodity production as well trade greatly expanded, and the Vedic era texts including the early Upanishads and many sutras important to later Hindu culture were completed. The Kuru Kingdom, the earliest Vedic state, was formed by super tribe, which joined several tribes in a new unit. To govern this state, Vedic hymns were collected and transcribed, and new rituals were developed, which formed the now orthodox Rota rituals. Two key figures in this process of the development of the Kuru state were the king Parikshit and his successor Janamejaya, transforming this realm into the dominant political and cultural power of northern Iron Age India. The most famous of new religious sacrifices that arose in this period were the Ashvamedh. This sacrifice involved setting a consecrated horse free to roam the kingdoms for a year. The horse was followed by a chosen band of warriors. The kingdoms and chiefdoms in which the horse wandered had to pay homage or prepare to battle the king to whom the horse belonged. This sacrifice put considerable pressure on interstate relations in this era. This period saw also the beginning of the social stratification by the use of Varna, the division of Vedic society in Kshatriya, Brahmins, Vaishya and Shudra. The Kuru kingdom declined after its defeat by the non-Vedic Salva tribe, and the political center of Vedic culture shifted east, into the Panchala kingdom on the Ganges. Later, the kingdom of Vidya emerged as a political center farther to the east, in what is today southern Nepal and northern Bihar state in India, reaching its prominence under the king Janaka, whose court provided patronage for Brahmin sages and philosophers such as Yajnavalkya and Uddalaka Aruni. Second urbanization. By the 6th century BCE, the political units consolidated into large kingdoms called Mahajanapadas. The process of urbanization had begun in these kingdoms, and commerce and travel, even over regions separated by large distances, became easy. Anga, doorstep of modern-day West Bengal, a small kingdom to the east of Magadha, formed the eastern boundary of the Vedic culture. Yadavis expanded towards the south and settled in Mathura. To the south of their kingdom was Vatsa, which was governed from its capital Kaushambi. The Narmada River and parts of northwestern Deccan formed the southern limits. The newly formed states struggled for supremacy and started displaying imperial ambitions. The end of Vedic India is marked by linguistic, cultural and political changes. The grammar of Panini marks a final apex in the codification of sutra texts, and at the same time the beginning of classical Sanskrit. The invasion of Darius I of the Indus Valley in the early 6th century BCE marks the beginning of outside influence, continued in the kingdoms of the Indo-Greeks. Meanwhile, within India, the Shramana movements challenged the authority and orthodoxy of Vedic scriptures and ritual.